Delegation is truly an art, and the best sales leaders know how to delegate responsibilities, projects, and tasks in a masterful way to empower their people and make up for areas they're not great in personally. Our next guest, Michelle Afshar, is a powerhouse enablement leader and has led global enablement organizations at some amazing companies like Zoom Video, Palo Alto Networks, and now Darktrace. Get ready for a leadership masterclass coming up next on Coach's Corner. Michelle, how are you doing today?
I'm so good, and thank you for such a kind welcome. It sounds so awesome.
Well, you are, and I think you'll do better justice than me for the audience. But obviously, you've been an enablement leader for a really long time, and I'm really excited to dive into our topic. But before we do that, maybe set the stage, share a little bit about yourself outside of work, and kind of what brought you here today.
I am a complete nut. So I think enablement is just my job, but I love doing all kinds of things that bring me fun and joy. So that can include baking, that could be taking a random trip to a city I've never been to. I'm a boy mom. So yesterday I was learning how to use a sword like they do in Zelda. Yeah, so I have a lot of hobbies, but I really, really love just having fun and finding ways to have fun. I think life is very serious in a lot of aspects. And I love to just figure out a way to live it to the fullest. I've been in enablement. I don't know why they let me have this job for over a decade, but I really love it because it's a mix of helping people and it's a mix of telling people what to do. And if you know me, that is my sweet spot of what I like to do with my time.
I think that's a great intro, and from someone who you have told what to do in real life before, I can vouch that firsthand. Today's topic is really exciting because I think what a lot of sales podcasts do is talk about like pie in the sky things, and we're going to dive into something that's really tactical. Most of the audience is a sales leader, and delegation is something that hopefully you learn really on in your sales leadership career and understand the importance of it. But it takes time to master, and often it's really hard to do if you're not in an environment that allows you to do that. So I'm really excited to hear from your perspective on the art of delegation and how you can provide insight to empowering your team while still focusing on those strategic goals. So Michelle, I think, we were talking earlier, and I know you mentioned a lot of managers stink at delegation and building accountability in their teams. So I'm curious, like, why do you think so many managers struggle with delegation, and what mindset shifts are necessary in order to become better at it?
So we have this crisis where a lot of leaders and a lot of managers just essentially become like super reps. They know how to do their team's job, they know exactly what needs to be done, and they kind of can't get out of the way. And so there needs to be a conscious, I think, shift to become a coach. And to be a coach means you have to give everybody a specific job. And you need to be very clear on what you want them to do and what you expect of them. But that means you have to be really, really clear on what you will do as a leader too. So I think people have a hard time with saying, what kind of leader do I want to be? And then what kind of team and teammates do I want to have on my team? So that's step one. If you want to be the kind of leader that can empower their team and give people really big projects, you have to take the next step down and say, what are those specific things people can do? You might be a little controlling. Like sometimes I'm a little controlling. You can ask, there's many people who have worked for me who are like, she is so annoying. She can't get out of some of these projects. I know that about myself. So you have to decide very quickly who you want to be as a leader. The second part of delegation is you have to learn how to trust people and let them fail. And that is very hard as a leader who usually as a sales leader, like we can't fail. If we fail, we don't hit our numbers. If we don't hit our numbers, there's no revenue. If there's no revenue, nobody has a job, right? So to learn how to delegate, to learn how to be a leader who can give people responsibility means there is a risk here that they will fail and that you might fail as a leader. So kind of like weighing that risk by the task that you have, by your reputation, the type of leader that you want to be. And I know those are really big things just on their own. But if you start to think about it in that manner, like, is this the kind of leader that I want to be? Yes. That means some people might really suck at this and I'm going to have to help them. You might then be able to make even just a plan for yourself to start delegating.
It's like a fascinating internal struggle. I think a lot of the beauty of sales is if you perform,
Yeah.
normally that gives you the opportunity to advance. But just because you're a great seller does not mean you're going to be a great people leader. And to your point, if an organization doesn't enable you and allow you to like coach your reps and not like superhero deals, you're never going to advance those reps. And there's this like never ending cycle of just like those problems. And I think when you figure out delegation, it can help with that. So there's a lot to unpack there, but let's keep digging in.
I
Let's
will
talk
say,
about.
like, I think one place you can start if you've never done it is delegate your weaknesses. So if you can just take, 20 minutes, be real, have a come to Jesus or whoever you pray to, and you say, these are the areas that I am weak. I know I need help doing these three things. If you start delegating the things you're not good at and start coaching people on your team who might be a little bit better at it, or you can coach them to be better at it, you'll start to see, then you can start to give away some of the things that, you might enjoy doing. But one like very tactical, like easy thing to do is I'm terrible. I am so bad at like a super detailed project plan. I'm really, really good at here's a strategy, here's the brand, here's what I want us to do, here's the people that I want on the team. But when you tell me to go build the project plan, like my brain shuts off and I like die in Excel, like I don't know how to, like I just stop functioning. So I started to find people who like they love that, right? They like love and they thrive in really detailed projects. That was the area that I needed help with, but just giving them the ability to show me that they could do it and they're good at it started to build this relationship between me and the people on my team. And I think that's very similar even in sales. Like if you hate pipeline management and you hate cleaning up your reports and you know that, maybe there's somebody on your team you could say, hey, can you take a crack at this first? And then we go from there. But I think pick the thing you're not good at and start to delegate that first.
Yeah, it's a strategic way to think. And another thing I want to call out there too, because I don't think we do this enough, is like it's okay to not know. There's this like toxic culture in sales of like I have to know everything and be this big confident person. It's like it's okay to say I don't have a clue,
Yeah.
But if you have people that can support you, like you said, in those weaknesses, that's really how you build out systems that work. Um, Diving into that, like how do leaders balance delegating those responsibilities with ensuring that they're actually executed at a high standard? So like how do they something they're not strong at, they delegate it, like how do they ensure they're actually doing it the right way?
I think there's a way to do this where you explain what you need. You might have to show somebody exactly how to do it, and then you need to trust them and give them a chance to then show you that they know what to do. But those are very three like distinct steps. And I think sometimes we assume as leaders, like if I tell you to do something and I ask you for something, that you should know how to do that thing. And that goes to your point, Brian. Like some people might just not know. And if you're starting to give people additional responsibility, you might have to do it for them the first time. You might have to include them in a specific call. You might have to say, here's the template I want you to use, take it back, fill it out for me, and let's have a conversation. And that adds time. That might add, additional meetings for you. That might add an hour or two that you need to explain something. But in the long run, you're able to then coach this person and give them this additional responsibility, which will take it off of your plate essentially, right? So I think it's starting to like figure out how people learn, how they can receive information. And maybe everybody on your team is different. I've had teams where I could tell somebody something they've never done before, and they come back with something that I'm like, oh, I didn't even, that's amazing. That's incredible. That's not even what I thought we were going to get out of it. And then I've had people on the team who I needed to show them exactly what to do, but I never had to show them again. Like it was like a one time show me and I can own it. You just kind of have to figure out the balance, I think, with the people on your team. But there is like a direct return on how much you invest in prepping people as you give them this responsibility. And you'll see it in the results, and you'll see it in things that become a little bit lighter for you as a leader.
Yeah, Michelle, I think a lot of what you say there to me, like hopefully probably resonates in like those Series A, Series B companies that just want to move so fast and maybe don't understand the like compounding interest that they build when they do measure twice and cut
Yeah,
once. And when they
yeah,
do like actually it's going to be a grind, right, for a little bit. And it's going to be a lot of time and teaching, but like it's worth imparting that knowledge. So again, to your point, you can think more strategically down the road.
yeah.
I think that definitely a ring home there. So that you kind of talked about this a little bit, but I want to just make sure we don't miss anything here. Like, what are some practical ways a manager can build confidence and accountability in their teams through delegation? Like, how does that help with confidence in a team?
So nobody wants to be in a position where they think that their manager thinks they're an idiot and they can't take on more. I think inherently humans, especially today in today's world, you see additional responsibility, you see trust from leadership as almost sometimes it can be seen as a promotion, or I'm getting up leveled, or I'm contributing and I'm providing to this organization in a different capacity. So that can only be built by trust and through communication. And I think that if you can build a culture where you can have these open conversations and you can guide people and you can say, this is something I think you should be able to take on. I'm going to show you how to do it, but I'm going to give you feedback along the way. And you start to build that kind of relationship with your team. It just becomes part of who you are and how you manage the team and how you can give people additional responsibility. I also think that um, when people are given the chance, most of them really want to do a good job. And so you are you're getting something really valuable in return for offloading something maybe difficult. And I think we forget that, or I think sometimes it's just easier to do it myself. It's just easier, it's faster for me to do it myself. I could do it better. This person's never done it before. But giving people a chance and then letting them take it and do something with it, like you can be surprised all the time, I think, as a leader. So that happens to me all the time where I'm like, I'm so glad I got out the way. I'm so glad I gave that to somebody else. I wouldn't have even been able to do that. And that's just being real, right? Like sometimes you got to be just really real that like even I couldn't have maybe done that as good as this person went and did it on their own.
Yeah, I think that's ever true. Like in our world, like that hits home. People want to do a good job. Like,
Yeah.
normally when you have a checked out sales rep or someone that's burnt out or, maybe a bad attitude, right? It's probably on you as a leader often, right? There's probably an environment for them to like not succeed. They've never been trusted with anything. So they've never actually been able to show maybe some of the other skills that they have. And sometimes there are just some bad apples, but like I truly do believe that like people want to do a good job, especially for their direct leader, right?
Yeah.
They want to make you proud. They want to show you what they can do. So I agree. We need to
And
let.
I think if you can give people just like there's two things in delegation. There's the tasks, which is very tactical. It's like do this thing by this date. There's outcomes of the task. There's the why behind the task. There's the value to you learning how to do this thing. So like telling them why it's really important, I think is really helpful. Like when you turn this thing in that I need, I will get to use it to do this, and this is the outcome and the impact it'll have on the business. I think those are things people forget to do when they're just assigning tasks. Like assigning tasks is a micromanager's job. It's a program manager's job. But a leader is saying, hey, I need you. I need your help. I need what you can bring to the table. I want your set of eyes and your experience to help bring this to life. This is why it's super important. And then the biggest thing I think is like sharing the wins. Delegation and people taking on willingly additional work only works if you also recognize people and then like celebrate that they did it really well. So if you're one of those managers that likes to take credit, just like stop listening and leave because it's not a good vibe for anybody. Um, but I think if you can share the wins of your people on your team who are you are giving additional responsibility to, who are making these changes and who are like taking on new projects they've never done before, a simple shout out that somebody is working on something or giving them credit that they put something together for you, it goes a really long way because there's going to be tasks and programs and things that you don't want to do that you can go back to somebody on your team and say, can you help me again? And they will be so much more willing to earn your trust, to take this thing on, even if it's super ugly. So I think it's a little bit of like, tell people what to do, tell them why it's really important, but also when you see them doing it, celebrate it. I think the other thing is like we all well not everybody knows how to ride a bike. I'm sorry, that's a wild assumption there, but most people that learned how to ride a bike maybe had training wheels right first. I come from, my parents are very Middle Eastern and training wheels did not exist, so we got a bike and it was like my big brother's bike, so I had to learn how to ride like an adult bike as a child. And that's scary, right? Like get on the big kid bike and there's no training wheels and my dad is a little crazy, so he just like pushed me down a hill and I had to figure it out so fast. But like could you put training wheels on for somebody? Could you give them guardrails? Could you help them so that they don't feel like it's either all this new responsibility and my boss delegated a task for me and like it's sink or swim? Could you give them a little bit of assurance and a little bit of help along the way? But I think those are the things that are really important when you're thinking about delegation.
I'm picturing you as an adult just getting pushed down the hill on a bike right now. But like, start with why is it is that is the difference between some of those small tasks that
Yeah,
if you don't give them the why, the rep's going, why the hell am I doing this? This seems like busy work. But
yeah.
when you give them the reason behind it and you go, hey, this report that I need you to clean is going to help us shape our targeting for next quarter. Like, oh, I'm impacting the business beyond just dialing or closing deals or whatever it is. And then I think the second thing you said there that really sticks out, I'm actually going to save because I think it goes into our next topic of like, I think the hardest part about delegation early on, if you've never been a leader that like tactically thinks about it, is what do I actually delegate? And like how do I identify what tasks to delegate versus which ones no, I got to do that. Like I have to own that as the leader. Like how do you there's the Eisenhower grid, there's all these different ways you can figure out, but how do you do it? How do you determine delegation?
So I think in my role, um, I need to set the strategy. I need to set the like vision of whatever we're doing. I think that's and I got to own it. And then there's really, really smart people that bring things to life. And sometimes in my delegation, I'm like, you can delegate back when you need me to do something. So I think it just depends on the type of team you have, the relationships you have, whatever you're working on. As a sales leader, there are very tactical daily things that need to happen that you want your teams to do. There's we talk a lot about, in all of our time together, Brian, we talk about how do you be a good coach? How do you become a good sales leader? What am I supposed to do as a leader? And I think setting the tone and just being very clear with your team is your job. What the actual task is going to vary on each team and how much revenue you guys are bringing in and what industries you're selling to and how green is your team, and like there's so many factors as to the actual tasks that you might need to delegate. So that's harder and really dependent on the person. But what I will say is nobody most people need direction. So delegation can come with like clarity and direction and let's go this way. And delegation can be very, very detailed. Like I need you to do this thing by Monday. It could also be, I need you to think of something really creative and come back to me, and then we work on it together. And so I think you can kind of figure that out. But I try to leave the big like strategy, vision, the bigger things for myself to always try to give to the team, and then allow them to try things they've never done. You can also just ask the people on your team, like, are there things that you are interested in learning how to do? Are there things you see every week that could get better that you want to help me tackle? Like, there are things that they will come to you that you might not know you should be delegating and say, I'd love to take that on. I see that there is this gap here. I see that maybe you need help in doing this. How do I help you get there? And you guys can have that conversation too. So maybe you also just be open to suggestions from your team.
Yeah, I think like when you create an environment that allows them to like manage up back to you, like you were saying earlier, like you delegate something and give them that, no, let them know the door's open. Like I'm not just pushing you, down the hill without training wheels, but I am pushing you down the hill.
Yeah.
And you can come back if we need to iterate and really think about um, the quality or effectiveness of what we're doing. That definitely sticks out to me because I think often when we hear task, we think very one directional. When in reality, if we're collaborating on those tasks, it's not like,
I had I'll give you an example. It's actually super relevant. So I had to delegate a big project that I got handed to my team. I had like 13 minutes. It completely blindsided everybody. I had to prep everybody. And I'm like, listen, I don't care how ugly this is. I don't even care what comes out of the next 2 days. I need 2 slides and I got to take it to the execs. This is what I need. I get this message from one of the people on my team, and they're like, we took a crack at it. You're either going to love it or you're going to hate it, but I think we're headed in the right direction. And so I take a look at what they sent me. I'm like, I love everything except the whole brand. It's so pink. There's a lot of glitter. Like, it was the right stuff, right? But it was like, so, like, if you know me, I'm not like a pink glitter kind of girl. Um, and it was so funny because they knew me enough to know you're either going to love it or you're going to hate it, but we think we're in the right direction with the limited amount of information that you gave us. But that's the culture that we built on my team, right? Is like, we might have a crazy idea. It might be super pink and glittery, and you're probably going to tell us no, but we're still going to bring it to you because that is what we think is the recommendation of what we want you to see. I love that relationship that I have with my team. I can trust them with a big project. I can trust them to give me something, and they can trust me knowing that I'm open to their feedback. It makes it makes giving people projects easier when that is a two-way street. It makes trusting each other easier when they know what I expect, and like I know what I'm going to get out of them. And so I just think being open to getting feedback on yourself as a leader, like, how am I, hey, I know I gave you this project, but was it clear? Were you confused at any part because of me? What could I have done to make this process easier for you? Those are questions I think if you continue to ask your team as you're figuring out this balance of what do I do, what do they do, creating that conversation between two people is super helpful, and it just builds a lot of trust.
I think that's the takeaway lesson, right? Is how do you build that trust through delegation, through the environment you create? With us coming up on time, if you could leave it with one thing, like what's the one takeaway that you want to make sure you drive home on the art of delegation, what would that be?
Somebody gave you a chance. Somebody thought something good about you and that you should take on more, and they gave you a chance. And I would say the best thing that you can do as a leader is give people a chance. I think you'll be surprised. I think people will show you that they can do a lot of things. And just don't let your head get too big that you forget that somebody gave you a chance to, because it goes a really long way for people.
I love that. Michelle, thank you so much for sharing your time with us. If people want to get a hold of you, ask questions, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Well, since they're going to get rid of TikTok, don't do that. But LinkedIn is great. You can send me a message. I'm always happy to share and connect with anybody. Thank you, Brian, for having me.
Thanks a ton.